I am the oops, um, owner and creative director of Wildcard and Co. So we're a digital marketing agency. Right now, we specialize in, we don't only work with this crowd, but right now we specialize mostly in women-owned high-end businesses. But there's some stragglers in there too outside of that. So a wide variety. And yeah, like I said, I'm just going to keep it really straight to the point here. So my goal is that you leave this kind of workshop or presentation feeling like you're equipped to come up with content on your own and maybe take on Instagram as in a more simple way. Because I'm sure some of you have done workshops like this where it can be overwhelming. There's a lot of information thrown at you, but a lot of that information also gets diluted in kind of the strategy. So hopefully coming out of this, you will feel equipped, but also have the feeling that Instagram and other social media platforms in general are simplified for you. So Meredith, if you can go to the third slide. The kind of topic of today is that, and the underlying theme that's sewn through all of this is that you already have what it takes. And that sounds very cheesy, but that's one of my biggest kind of, I would say pet peeves for sure, but also struggles when I start working with clients and people who are learning about social media or even thinking about dipping their toes into it, is that you hear words like algorithms and target markets and trending audios, and those things can be overwhelming. So, like I said, we're going to break it down. We're going to keep it really simple. And then most importantly, I really want to focus on how you are going to set yourself apart. So the thing that I always tell my clients is, I'll just use myself as an example. If you're in the social media marketing industry, there are hundreds, thousands more social media marketers in our vicinity. So it can feel like it's diluted, and that goes for a lot of different industries. So we're going to really hone in on how you can kind of differentiate yourself and set yourself apart here. All right, so we'll go into the next slide. So we're going to talk right off the bat. Oh, did I already say please cut in? I don't have a ton within the presentation of spots for questions, but I definitely want you to feel free to do so because, again, like I said, there's a lot of information coming at you. So feel free to stop me at any point and I will be happy to answer any questions you have. Okay? So first and foremost, when you're a business owner, you want to have, whoops, what did I do here? A strategy. So we're talking about the first content pillar. I like to have 5 for all of my clients. Okay. All of my clients, I like to have 5 pillars. The first one is entertainment. And I put in brackets, sorry, no skipping this one. I always say, we signed up to be web developers. We signed up to be social media managers. We signed up to be, estheticians, whatever your industry is. We didn't sign up to be comedians or improv professionals or actors, but unfortunately, we do have to entertain our audience, and hopefully we can give you some ideas on how to do that is authentic to you and not quote unquote cringy. Okay, so the reason you need entertainment, first of all, is of course to grab your audience's attention. And when you are thinking about your entertainment pillar, so that 20 to 25% of your content, how you're going to entertain them, the method that you're going to use to deliver that entertainment that's most effective is going to be reels and stories. Okay, so we'll get into a little bit more about what that looks like later on, but I just want you to kind of wrap your mind around the different methods that you're going to deliver. And also when I say reels, that is kind of, I use that interchangeably with TikToks as well. So anytime you see reels, you can kind of sub in TikToks. But of course, just in case some of you don't know, and maybe you're starting completely fresh with Instagram or social media, On Instagram, you can have standalone posts, which is just essentially a picture, and then you have a caption. I call those standalone posts. You can have reels, which is video content, and then you can have carousels, which is up to, I think Instagram recently changed it to 20 photos, but where your audience can kind of slide through and look at different slides that you have in that one post. So that those are called carousels. So with entertainment, I usually recommend sticking to reels and stories, okay? And then I gave lots of examples because I do find that people that I work with understand often the pillars, but then where they get stuck or where they kind of get caught up is, okay, I get it. I need to entertain my audience, but how do I do that? So these are just examples. Of course, you don't have to do all of these if you're not comfortable doing them, or if they don't align with your brand, then we can come up with more at the end as well in the Q&A if you have specific questions about your particular industry. But some examples that I gave are bloopers, showing a day in the life, BTS, which of course means behind the scenes, introductions about who you are, your team, your business. Business evolution is a really great one. So befores and afters, if you are, for example, an interior designer, this is something that's going to be your bread and butter. But I think even people like, for example, social media managers, web designers, people who work more in the digital space, forget that this is something that we can show off as well. Work that we did, when we first started out versus what we do now. And sometimes it's hilarious because it's like, okay, this is what you shouldn't do, but I used to do it. So we all start somewhere. So it's just, again, a great way to entertain your audience. Time lapse, Meredith, your team's really good at doing these, creating a project or a product, how it's made, expectation versus reality. So those are just some examples of that. Does anyone have any questions about that particular pillar before we move on? I actually can't even see how many people are in this call. It's probably better, actually. Okay, well, feel free to chime in if you do have questions, okay? Okay, next one is education. So again, this is going to be about 20 to 25% of your total content. This is where you're adding value to your audience. But the most important part of this is that you're not mentioning a sale at all. So you're adding value in the sense that you're providing them with information that is going to help them without actually using you as a vendor or becoming a client of yours, okay? And as I'm sure you can probably imagine, this builds trust. If someone's giving me advice on something that actually works, I'm way more prone to work with them than someone who, kind of gatekeeps and holds on to all of their secrets. But the important thing here is that you're, of course, not giving away your entire method, because otherwise then you will have no clients. And the goal, of course, at the end of all of this is to gain more. So, but education is really important in building trust, like I said, and then also in giving yourself credibility as a business owner. So it not only builds a trust, but it also adds to, shows people kind of your expertise in your field. So super, super important. And when you're talking about education, or when you're focusing on educational posts, a great method for this is using carousels. So those swipe through methods, or swipe through posts that I talked about rather, because it's a great way to fit a lot of information in, and people can kind of choose how much or how little they want to read it. And just as an FYI, part of the reason why Reels and carousels do really well on Instagram right now specifically is because the app wants your audience, they want users to have their audience spend more time on the platform. Of course, we know that. So with a carousel, if you're putting in 10 slides and someone's actually getting to the end of that, they're spending 10, 15, 20 plus seconds on your account alone. So Instagram really loves that. So that I love carousels for educational information. Standalone posts, of course, can be great as well, where that's just that one photo and you have a very informative caption, and also even sometimes reels, okay? An example or a couple examples of education are how-tos, tips and tricks, tutorials, and do's and don'ts in your industry. Does anyone have any questions about any of that? No. Awesome. Okay. Number 3, inspiration. So it kind of propels ideas and sparks creativity in your audience. So this is a really big one. And actually, I would say probably one that a lot of people don't spend a lot of time on. But what it does is it actually helps your audience feel empowered. So you know that saying where people say we don't remember what someone said, but we remember how they made us feel. So that is building rapport 101. If you are giving your audience permission, of course not verbally, but they're going to come away from your inspiration feeling empowered. They're going to remember that you gave them that feeling through your content and carry that with them when they're making decisions on who to work with, of course, is the ultimate goal, but even just who to trust and who to continue to engage with. It's all, as you can see, these first 3 are really about building rapport, building credibility, building trust, and gaining audience through those methods. For this one, I said you can use all different forms. So depending on your industry, this would change a little bit, but for the general public, I would say you can create inspirational content in reels, stories, posts, everything, all of the above. And a couple examples I gave, and these don't have to be directly related to your industry, by the way. Journal prompts, to-do lists that they can fill out as they go throughout their day. Give them a challenge to complete, sharing a motivational quote, or even show them part of your method. So how you do things, and again, that can inspire something that they do throughout their day or in their method. Cool. Okay. So next, sorry guys. Next is conversion. So this, of course, is making the sale, which is why we're all here and what we want Instagram to do for us, I think, as business owners. The biggest mistake I see with people that I work with, I would say when it comes to the conversion pillar, is that they use it too frequently. So they're asking for the sale, they're talking about their product, they're linking their links. This is a really common one. So if you're a product-based industry and you're putting, for example, say you are a skincare brand, okay? And you're talking every other day about different skincare products that you have in your industry or in your company, and you're linking the product, telling people this is where you can get it. That is great for conversion if used, again, 20 to 25% of the time. If you're doing it too frequently, that's when you start to lose rapport and trust with your clients. They can pick up that you, of course, are just, focusing on making the sale as opposed to adding that value that we talked about in the previous pillars. So this one, again, I said when you're talking about conversions, you can use all sorts of all forms on social media. So that's Reels, TikToks, carousels on Instagram, posts, and stories. And then conversions aren't always asking for the sale directly. They can be, of course, promotions or sales that you have going on, but it can also be a form of education. So if you have this product, this is actually a really good, Meredith does this really well too. If you have this problem, this is what you need to fix it, and we have it. That would also fall under the conversions kind of pillar. Why you made this product or service and for who, and how even the behind the scenes of how it's made. Again, that's a little bit different than that educational piece that we talked about because it's directly speaking to your product or your service. Okay, now the one that I would say a lot of people skip. So if you've ever done any type of social media course, you probably have at some point heard 1 through 4, maybe not in those exact words, but they're pretty common pillars for most content creators or people who work in the social media space. In my opinion, the one that most people miss, and this is the part that we talked about where you're setting yourself apart from your competitors or saturated markets, is you need to have a personal pillar as well. Okay. So I think I watched one of the videos of someone who did a social media workshop like this with Meredith about a year ago. And she focused a lot on the differentiator, but I'm going to continue to talk about it because it's that important. And especially, with the algorithms and social media in general changing so much, it's something that cannot be skipped. So differentiator could mean what sets you apart as a person or a brand, or it could also be what your very specific niche is if you have that. So it's one or the other, okay? And then how to establish that, of course, is defining your core beliefs of your brand and then also defining what sets you apart. So we're going to do some exercises where I'm going to give you some examples, and then I'm also going to give you some time to go through this. My ask for you is that if you've already done it, do it again, because we can always continue to audit what we are providing for our audience and also just who we are as a brand. And actually that should continuously change. So even if you've done this before, it's really, really important. So we'll do it again. Okay, so here we go. So these are the questions you're going to ask yourself after I give you some examples in case you're stuck on this. The first one, how to establish your personal pillar. Of course, the first one is define the core beliefs of your brand. And like I said, I'll give you some time in a minute to do this. Define what sets you and or your brand apart. Determine what your clients are interested in. So I want to give you an example of two of my clients. The first one is a bridal boutique. Meredith, when you're ready, you can go to the next one. Thank you so much. The first one is a bridal boutique. Okay, so when we sat down and defined their core beliefs, some of the things that came up were inclusivity, high-end experience for all, and honesty. Okay. And then when we went further and we talked about what sets them apart, first of all, they're a plus size only boutique. So that is a perfect example of a strategy that would focus on a niche as their personal pillar. Their niche is very clear, plus size only, very simple. That's kind of what's going to be underneath all of their content. Okay. Background is not retail for the owner. So this is a big one. And hopefully while I'm going through this, you can kind of see that really any of your experiences that are a little bit different than other people's can be defining parts of you that set you apart from your industry or other competitors. So the owners' backgrounds are not in retail, and that really gives us a huge advantage in our content because they can get into the nitty-gritty of, for example, how dresses are made, why it's important to partner with certain designers, what the other end of the industry looks like, not just, okay, we're coming in, we're buying a dress, and this is the information that you're presenting. So don't underestimate past experiences that you've had in other fields and just experiences that you've had in general that maybe have nothing to do with work. So another thing that sets them apart is that we really lean into the feisty content. So we say it how it is. A lot of, bridal boutiques are a little bit different in that they're I want to say like prim and proper, and they're very, like, for example, their aesthetic is white and very soft, and these girls are just moody, they're gritty, they're feisty, and it's very different. They've kind of, completely set themselves apart in their branding and in their how they kind of approach in their copy and how they present to the world. So the next one is determine what your customers are interested in. So this one can take some time and patience, but for us, we realized that what their clients really wanted was just to see beautiful clothing on bodies like their own. And again, so we're really leaning into that niche of these are our people. What do they want? How can we provide value for them? And something that simple is so easy for us to do. The other part that we noticed that they really wanted is to feel like part of a community. Are there any questions about any of that? No? Okay, great. Next one is very different. This is a lifestyle influencer. Okay, so the reason I chose two different examples is because I really want to show that anything can be your differentiator. So this woman, her core values are respected expertise, quality over quantity, and independent sophistication. So she is a lifestyle influencer, and in that market, a lot of times, the branding is friendly lifestyle influencer, and she's actually the exact opposite of that. You don't see her smile very often. She sets really strong boundaries with her time, meaning that she doesn't post every single day. She doesn't post a ton of stories or content when she does post. It's just very quality over quantity. What she gives us is what she gives us, and there's not a lot of extra. So then when we talked about what her customers are interested in seeing, we determined that it is seeing beautiful clothes and decor and even seeing kind of the food, restaurants, places that she's going without the extra fluff. So my takeaway message with this one specifically is I follow this girl because I trust her. I don't necessarily know that I would be her friend outside of, being a follower of hers. Like I think that's a really important drive home message is that there's a difference in trusting people with our purchases and our money and our resources and liking them on a personal level. So again, this is a bit of an extreme example, but hopefully the next slide, hopefully the moral of the story is that everyone can have a differentiator and a niche. And also adding to that, you don't need to be for everyone, and actually you don't want to be. So there's a quote that says, if you stand for everything, you actually stand for nothing. And in terms of branding or social media, I think we can edit that to if we stand for everyone, we actually stand for no one. We want to be engaged with people who trust us, who believe in what we're doing, and who align with our beliefs, our core values as a business. And that is just not going to be everyone. So I think that's important too. Okay, we're going to just take a couple minutes to go through those three questions that I asked. So define your core beliefs as a brand, define what sets you and your brand apart, and define what your customers are interested in. So I'm just gonna look at my clock here. We'll give 2 minutes and then if anybody wants to share, I would love that, but if not, that's okay too. Okay, that's 2 minutes there. Is there anyone who would like to share theirs or ask any questions about how to answer those if you had a hard time? Or maybe just share about what uh, what was challenging and what was easy about answering those questions. And also, if no one wants to talk, that's okay too.
I'm happy to share if nobody else wants to.
That'd be awesome.
Is there anybody? I don't see anybody going off mute, so I'm assuming. Okay. Um, I would say that this clarity gets easier the longer you have been in business and definitely adjusts. What you might think is a core belief if you're of the mindset that like, hey, I'm not always right all the time, right? You're flexible in your thinking, you are going to see this change for sure. And you're also going to start learning, and getting exposure to different clients and obviously they're going to create a little bit of these experiences which form some of these core beliefs. Sorry, I warned you guys about the cough. Okay. So for My Wolf Design, our core beliefs, well, our audience are those who are not just new businesses, where we honor that, like, hey, the DIY or the template or the brand kit can help serve when you're a brand new business. However, there are stages of investment and your problems change and your goals change and things get more complex the longer you've been in business. And a DIY or template will not solve those problems. And so it's about our core belief is that an owner should not be DIYing any of their core fundamentals of their business, brand, website, the copy on the website, their photography. Those are critical components to a website. And the more I'll use the word cut corners, which is a bit, the more they cut the corners and DIY or take, easier routes, the more diluted that asset becomes. And so we stand out because we're not going to build you a website unless there's a really strong understanding of the brand and the brand visuals. You're not going to write your own website copy. We're not going to use stock and things like that. So I find question one is very similar to question two. So therefore, because of these core beliefs, we operate with it's not a one-woman show. I'm not pretending I'm a copywriter and a website designer and a brand designer. We have experts in their own right to actually serve you, to actually make this a proper investment that's going to move the needle in your business. When it comes to what customers want, obviously they want ROI on their investment. And so the higher quality, the better it is. They also have no time for this and they admit they don't know what they're doing. They also want a website that's easy to use. So again, we're operating on Squarespace and not WordPress for a reason. Um, and they want things that are easy. And so it's something about the investment into all of these critical components when you start to paint it as an ecosystem that, hey, these aren't photos for a website. These are photos for your business and, socials and website and email marketing. This is brand for everything. So you can outsource easily. When people can start to see how this affects everything in their business, it starts to really make them realize their life can be more streamlined and easy and easier to outsource and communicate their brand and all of those things. So, excuse me.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And also, one thing that you touched on that is not, I mean, not directly related to what we're talking about, but I think is important to touch on is that you never hide that you have a whole team working with you and you describe them as experts, which I think a lot of maybe newer business owners are hesitant to share publicly, like specifically working in social media. I have a lot of clients who I'm one of the first people that come on their team, and they want the world to think that it's them that's, for example, answering their DMs or posting on social media. And truthfully, when it adds credibility that you're expanding your team, because obviously you have the ability to withhold adding staff or contractors or whatever. But also that adds a layer of vulnerability, in my opinion, because you know that you can't be everything. And so you're outsourcing a lot of that to people who maybe, are who, like you said, are experts in those particular fields. So I love that you've always been transparent about that. Okay, if anyone else wants to share, we can do that at the end. We'll just keep going here just because I want to be mindful of time. We'll definitely have time for questions at the end, but just in case people need to hop off early or have their lunch. Okay, and actually the next slide Meredith touched on, it's remember you're never locked in. So you always want to be, it's actually just the next one there, Meredith, right after that one. Thank you. So you want to be auditing your social media and your website consistently. And these pillars are, of course, just a guide like everything from a strategic standpoint, but specifically that personal one, as your brand and as your business begin to scale or evolve, those are going to change consistently as well. A perfect example of this is the Birds Papaya. I'm sure many of you know who she is. She's a powerhouse influencer who makes a living off of Instagram, and she's changed her niche at least 4 times. She started out as a mom making crafts, a stay-at-home mom making crafts. Then she went into like fitness, weight loss. Now she's lifestyle. So a perfect example of how things can shift quite regularly and you can still be successful. In fact, I would argue that you have to continue to change if you want to grow. And of course, you should be looking at your metrics. I didn't put a lot of any slides on metrics in here because that's kind of a whole different beast. But if you have specific questions about those, I'm happy to answer them. I gave my email at the end of this, but that's a great way to kind of see where you should be putting more information and where maybe you should be taking away or spending less time in terms of your pillars. So when you're starting out, if you've never had pillars before, a great start is just an even 20% of each one, but you will start to see within your metrics which ones are doing well. Now, I will just give the disclaimer that, of course, if the personal ones are doing the best, you still do have to provide information about your business. Otherwise, it's going to turn into a personal page. But you can lean in a little bit more into what it is that your audience is enjoying or what's getting you that reach that you're looking for. Awesome. Okay. So next slide. Very simple, but people ask me this every time I talk about social media. How often should I be posting? So depending on the platform, you're going to change this up a little bit. Right now, Instagram 3 to 5 times a week is a great target if you are focusing on reels and stories. So we talked a little bit about carousels and standalone posts. Those, of course, can be sprinkled in, but that sneaky algorithm loves the engagement on reels and stories right now. So 3 to 5 times a week, I would say for both of those. Anything else on top of that, you can sprinkle in. And then TikTok is daily. So if do we have any, and you can just say in the chat, you don't have to raise your hand. I know a lot of you are off camera, but I'm just curious, do we have any TikTok users? I didn't talk a ton about that because I know that the focus was supposed to be Instagram, but if you use TikTok for your business, I'd love to know. But if you do, you want to be posting daily on there. And then YouTube once per week is generally the recommendation for growth. Okay, and then the next slide is, Do I need to use all of the platforms? The short answer, of course, is no. And the further you get into your business and the further you get into your social media strategy or usage, the more you're going to find out what works for you. But I would say if you are listening right now to this workshop because you feel that either you're stagnant in your growth on social media, or you aren't sure where to start because you haven't really started on any of them, I would say pick two or three because you may not realize, and do that for 6 to 12 months. 3 months is not a long enough time to see like actual growth on social media. So 6 to 12 months is what I usually recommend, and you may open doors that you're not expecting. So I have a perfect example of this. I have an esthetician client who has a company here, and she moved to the States. She kept the business in Canada in KW, and her target market here was university students. That's how she built her brand for the last 10 years. And of course, we know that TikTok is incredible for that. So she took that exact same strategy when she moved to the States, and it was a flop. She's been doing it for a year and a half, trying to market to that exact same kind of crowd. And just where she lives, there's no bites. So she completely had to shift her strategy back into Instagram, which is not something that we hear very often anymore. So just a little tidbit there. Okay, next one. The trend that will never go away is engagement. So I think MCAT Social is the one I was thinking. I think she's on this call too. Hi, if you're here. She talked about engagement in her video as well. And again, I have to talk about it because it's so important. You can't get away without using it. So you've heard it before. It's called social media for a reason. You want to make sure that you're engaging authentically with your audience. So I think for the most part, most people know that means, answering DMs on time, making sure that you're answering comments as well. Those things are very important. But just to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty here, right now, what's really important with engagement is actually that you're using 3 words or more. Okay. So what you don't want to get in the habit of doing is just responding with an emoji or a quick 1-word response. You want to use 3 words or emojis in your DMs and in your comments to get that engagement rate up. And then also, just if you are outsourcing your social media, this is something that I think is really, really important to talk about with your social media manager or your digital marketing person, to really understand the voice that you want behind your brand when they are responding to the text messages, or sorry, to the DMs, because you want to make sure that aligns with your brand all the way through it in everything that you're doing. Okay, next one is unpopular opinions. So I think that as the algorithm has continued to change with Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and all of social media, there's a lot of information out there that can be confusing. And I actually wasn't going to include this slide, but I decided to put it back in because these are things that, as someone who works in the industry, I'm actually seeing. And so I thought it was important to include. So for example, the first one is that on Instagram and TikTok for a while there, we were hearing that hashtags are no longer and we shouldn't use them. And I have, with actually every single one of my clients, seen the exact opposite. So I actually still recommend using those on both Instagram and TikTok. Instagram, the max you can do is 30. The sweet spot for me has been 6 to 12 on Instagram. Okay, 6 to 12 hashtags. And then TikTok would be less than 10 if you've jumped on that train. And then my opinion about Instagram, or my experience, not just my opinion, is that Instagram is a slow burn. So it's kind of like an uphill walk where if you're consistent with it, some people are lucky and they have amazing growth, overnight. Oh, Kate has a question, I think.
Hi, where should we be putting the hashtags on Instagram? Should they go in the caption or in the first comment?
Yeah, great question. I do both. And truthfully, the reason I do that is because I have clients who aesthetically just don't like the look of the hashtag in the caption. So it still works in the comment, but if I were to choose a preference, it would be in the caption. And
Awesome.
you can space now, so you can kind of get it out of the way too. So Instagram being a slow burn, what I mean by that is that it's just with the consistency, you can get pretty steady growth. Okay. TikTok, on the other hand, is what I like to call high risk, high reward. So what I've had to explain to a lot of my clients recently is that, we're investing and posting on TikTok every single day. And sometimes we literally get 12 views, and that investment meaning that, they're spending their resources to work with me, and I'm spending my resources, my time, and my energy into creating the content. Sometimes you get absolutely nothing, and sometimes you get really, really great rewards from it. So again, as a disclaimer that, the experts now are saying post every single day on TikTok, but don't get discouraged in the fact that things may not go viral every single time you post, because I think that's something that is a misconception about TikTok as well. And then my last unpopular opinion is that when it comes to social media, gone are the days where personal topics are unprofessional. People want to see inside you, and this goes back inside your business and inside your personality. This goes back to the first thing that I talked about, which is that, there are hundreds of people in your industry and in your field, and what sets you apart is your experiences, your personality, your expertise. And people need to see that to know it, right? So it's not just about posting about your business. It's about letting them into your world to whatever capacity, of course, you're comfortable with. But that's a really big one that I reiterate to my clients as well. Okay, the next ultimate question here is Instagram dead? And I just put a simple no, but that was kind of a joke. So I guess I did do one funny thing, hopefully. The next slide gets into the nitty gritty of why Instagram is not dead. So currently there are 1.4 billion users worldwide. And last year, a lot of people don't know this, Instagram actually surpassed TikTok in growth. So there was a 20% growth seen in Instagram versus a 4% growth seen on TikTok in terms of app downloads. So the app is very much still relevant, still growing, and still working for business owners and personal use. It's a great platform for if your target market is millennials, Gen Z, or baby boomers. And the one disclaimer that I left here is that engagement rates are dropping on social media across the board. So that is why the algorithms continue to shift, because of course the makers of these apps are trying to get those rates back up. So we're seeing a lot of shifts in what strategy should be and in what the algorithms are favoring, and it can be attributed to this. And then the last thing I added here is that there are some trends that you can look for in the future. So we'll talk about this a little bit later too. And I know don't worry, I will not go past 1 o'clock. But private messaging and niche communities are going to be the next big thing. You heard it here first. So if you are someone who isn't into Instagram or TikTok, or you want to try something new, these examples that I gave, private communities within Substack, Discord, and even the private communities on Instagram, are, I think, where the trends are going to go. Just people want more intimate, and that's what we're seeing kind of. So okay, next one. So we're just addressing the elephant in the room here, which is everything you said is fantastic, Sandra, and that's all well and good, but I don't have time to do any of that. And the pillars are great, but I don't have time to execute a marketing plan. So that then goes into, of course, if you would like to bring someone on board. And what I've done here is given you a few things to consider in the next slide when you are considering hiring someone for your team or as a contractor. So the first thing is make sure you can interview them. If you're thinking about hiring a social media manager and they do not provide a free discovery call, that's a huge red flag because they're going to be in your business every single day. So the least that they can do, and something that's really important for you as a business owner, is to make sure that the vibe is there, right? That they understand who you are and what your goals are. This one is really important. So before, actually, I should have put this one as the first thing, but before you even get on that call, I would really reflect on where in your sales funnel you want them to fall. What do you want their role to be? And then you can lead the interview based on that. And then on the flip side of that, that can be part of the interview because they need to understand what part of the sales funnel they are so that they can tell you if they can actually execute that, right? So they're not going to be closing your sales, but at some point they are within, their role is within your sales funnel. So you just have to make sure you're on the same page there. And then go ahead, Meredith.
I was planning on asking this question at the end if it wasn't addressed, but I feel like this probably makes the most sense to ask since we're on this topic. So what does someone require in order to, like, how do I ask this question? What do they need to have if you're sort of like, well, obviously you need to have X, Y, and Z for me to take over your social media? Like, what are those prerequisites in order to have a successful marketing execution? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. I would say it's not a black and white answer because probably every person has a different method. I don't take, as you know, I personally don't take on clients who don't have branding and a website done. So I usually, of course, send them back to you to make sure that that's completed if they don't have that. Is that what you're asking before I go on? Like what kind of tools they have?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm asking. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I personally don't work, like I said, with anyone who doesn't have branding done, who doesn't have a website, for a couple reasons. Number one is all the work that I do should be in line with, and I want it to be cohesive with all of their other marketing information. So if they have one person doing a website, one person doing social media, and then another person doing email marketing, that's totally fine. That's actually very normal. But what the end goal is that your clients don't know that. It should be completely fluid throughout all of your marketing information. And then it's a conversation. Like I wouldn't say that, you have to be at a certain place in your business. I've taken people who haven't actually started their business yet or who have had other people work for them for years and they want a refresh or, just want to go in a different direction. But I think at a very bare minimum, those are my requirements. And I don't know, not to put you on the spot, and I'm sorry I don't know your name, but MCAT Social, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh, hey, Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah, I would definitely say a website branding, but also I don't think that somebody needs to have a keen awareness of who they are and what I came into the call later. I know you were talking about a differentiator. If somebody doesn't come in with a keen awareness of what that looks like, we spend a lot of time figuring that out. Also, I think Meredith just popped it in the chat, but photography, videography, trying to create content from crappy video and crappy photography is just an utter waste of time. So I think what you're in terms of like my priority, what I'm looking for is somebody who can make their investment in me make sense to them. And it doesn't make sense if they're not equipped with all of those things. And if you're not willing to make the investment in all of those things, then your platform is going to fall flat. Like your messaging, like I come at social media from a messaging perspective. And if your messaging, it can be there all day long, but if you don't have all the other things to marry with it, then that investment, and not even just outsourcing, like that investment in your own time, that investment in someone else is just a waste. So those are my kind of parameters.
So good. Yeah, that's awesome. I so we actually have photography in our packages, so that's why I didn't mention that. But yeah, we don't move forward unless we have either pre-existing content that is approved by our team, or if they don't have that, or if it fails, then it's part of our package that we include. Super important. And I think that's another thing that we can really quickly touch on. I know we have 8 minutes here, so this is the last slide anyways, but I think another thing that is trending right now with social media is that the aesthetic feed is gone. And while I agree with that to some degree, like we don't need a perfectly curated, everything matching anymore feed, it still is like your business card. So when people come in and they see, you know, photos taken on a dirty cell phone or something where it's blurry, that's not going to present, you know, a professional business card. So that's definitely important. And then another thing too, just quickly to add, I don't, again, every social media manager is a little bit different, but we do a really extensive questionnaire. So the branding is kind of part of, you know, knowing your core values as a business. And if people don't know that, then they don't need to, but we go through it with them before we start our services, just so that we're all on the same page. And then, like Sarah said, the messaging is really important and cohesive that way. Awesome. Well, we have gotten to the end and we have 7 minutes. So if anyone has any specific questions about any of the things we covered, how to come up with your personal pillar or hashtags or anything in between, I would be happy to answer them. Anyone have anything?
I asked my one question.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just to expand on it, I think what is just kind of ringing in my head as I listen to this and what Sarah said and what you said, Sandra, too, is like, it's just so important, like it really is such an ecosystem. You know, you can't kind of decide. I find so many times it's like people and I did this exact same thing, you know, at 3 a.m, I decided I was going to start a business and literally made an Instagram account. Like, I'm not kidding. And looking back, like, I get why I did that. It's free. I'm familiar with the platform and all of that. But my advice would be like, cool, start it. That's fine. You can get the handle. But there's so many things that you need first. And I find, like, as I talk to owners, it seems like the priority, it becomes this rat race because you see your competition constantly posting. So you try and get in there and get in the race without the running shoes, you know, like you're in stilettos and, you know, your suit kind of running down. And it's like, whoa, you need the shoes, you need the route, right? Like, but people get so caught up in just seeing they're posting, I gotta post, right? And it's you sort of skip what's needed to actually make it successful, right? So
100%.
Yeah. I think it's just such a mindset shift to not get caught up in that rat race.
Well, and I think if I could add to that, I think the skip, like you said, Meredith, happens when we're skipping the fundamentals and we think we're focusing on the right things, which is reach and metrics and all of those vanity elements that while there's weight in that, they're important on some level, we're skipping it all and going straight to it and getting defeated when we don't get high views and all of these things, when really it's like we have to shift back to all the things that create those metrics that we want eventually. Yeah. So the like you said, the mindset needs to shift because we're skipping a step.
Yeah, totally. And there's really great resources. Oh, I hate it when I find that I need to post just to post. It comes off as inauthentic, but I don't want to become irrelevant to the algorithm. Ooh, I feel like, yeah, you just opened up a can of worms. That that hit a nerve for me. Sandra, do you want to answer that? This is your platform.
I feel, and maybe Sarah can add here too, but I feel again on the other end of the spectrum because of course I'm in this every single day. It really does become a habit. It's like going to the gym. Like you know, you don't want to go every single day, but it's the consistency that makes it easier to go when you continue to show up. That being said, I think that batching is when I started, batching is what helped me because when you're in that kind of zone of this is the important information that I need to relay and I have a plan of how I'm going to do that. That's very different than last minute sitting there with your phone in your hand and okay, I have 16 minutes before 6 p.m., which is my high peak time or whatever, which that's a whole other thing. But it's very different when you're intentional about A, the time you've set aside to create the content, and B, the plan that you're actually executing with that content, right? And so that's why I really like those percentages for the pillars because it takes a little bit of the guesswork out, especially when you're starting out or you're feeling like you are, you know, you're at a loss for what to post. I'll just add one more thing. The other thing that we forget is that we're posting this every single day. People aren't necessarily seeing it every single day. And even if they are, it used to be in sales that they told us that people need to hear something 7 times before they pull the trigger. Since COVID, that has changed to like 14. So we feel repetitive, like we're saying the same thing over and over. That's not the case. People are following hundreds, sometimes thousands of other people. So don't be afraid to recycle content that you know is important or that has, you know, worked well for you in the past. Hopefully that was helpful.
I can add to that too. I think just as business owners, this is a more generic kind of ad, is that we've signed up to run a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's pillars to every business. You know, you have human resources, right? Even if you're a one-woman show or one-man show, you have accounting, you have sales, you have marketing, you know, and you can't ignore all of those pillars. That is, you know, the wheels, that's the engine that runs the business. So when you choose to sort of opt out or not outsource, I've outsourced accounting from day one because I will never understand it. So, you know, my way of like stepping up, I had to fill the hole, right? But when you are kind of operating sort of like in just back to your point, like you're posting just to post, what that shows is like, hey, we don't have a marketing strategy in place, right? Because you wouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that also says like, hey, there's probably a gap here in your business that, you know, it could be fear, it could be just not knowing, there could be plenty of reasons, but that should also say, you know, ring the bell, like I actually should be putting hyper focus on this, right? So yeah, I think it's just important to remember that like that's what fuels a business, always, right? So I don't know what my point was there. I've just lost my point, but did that make sense anyway? Did that help? I don't know.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sarah just said before she left, focus on your audience and not the algorithm. Chasing the algorithm is overrated. She said, thanks, Sandra. So, all right,
Yay.
we're at 1 o'clock right now. Did anybody else want to ask? What is the best time to post?
Ooh. Yeah, so in line with what Sarah just said, you don't need to buy fancy apps or software to determine this. If you really want to know best time of day to post, you can find this within your metrics in the actual Instagram app. But my opinion about this, and again, I keep saying my opinion, but through the experience that I've had with the clients that I have, the consistency is what's more important. And so that doesn't mean posting every single day. It means, like we've just been talking about, being intentional about the kind of content you put out and making sure that it gets out in an organized way. So every account is different. If I look at the metrics of all my clients, some of them the morning is the high time during the week, some of them 6 p.m. So that is very, very individual to your business and to your account. But again, I wouldn't get caught up in making sure that you're posting at that specific time every single day.
Thanks, Sandra. All right. Everyone's saying thank you and they need to go.
Yeah.
That was pretty on point with 1 o'clock. I think I was the one that put us over. So thanks everyone for coming, and I'll be sending out the replay. So everyone will get that, including Sandra's information as well. And then those of you who didn't make it, you will also get the replay. So, all right. Thanks everyone.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye guys. Thank you.